My name's James and I paint minis.
This is Spoontastic Minis. To follow up my most popular video so far, which was about how to assemble your miniatures, I'm going to do a video on conversions, specifically what is a conversion and how do you get into it. So the simple question is, do all your miniatures look the same, or do you want them to look the same as everyone else's? If the answer is no, you need to learn how to do conversions. To clarify, I don't mean an alternative manufacturer's compatible model. I mean taking a standard model and then altering it so that it looks different to the standard, like this. I also don't mean starting with nothing and scratch building a miniature, such as this duck made from green stuff over a wireframe. The technique I'm going to talk about today is called kit bashing, where you take parts from various kits and mix them together to make a completely new miniature. Now I'm going to be working on this Primaris Lieutenant. I want to change the head, the arm, the shoulder pad. I want to get rid of the thing on the backpack, and maybe one or two other small details so that it looks different from the other two. I'm going to use this Primaris Dark Angels Upgrades sprue because my army is Dark Angels, and I'm also going to use some bits from the Primaris Intercessor box. Now to do this, obviously we're going to need a replacement head of the sprue. I'm going to go for this bald head with a cybernetic eye, but you could also use ones from the Primaris Intercessor box as there are plenty of spares. We also have to disassemble a model, and as this is an easy to build model, it's all pegs and slots, so we have to pull everything apart pretty much in reverse order to the way it went together, because you'll find the head is captured between the front and back part of the torso. Sometime later. After many hours of struggling with it, I finally got the front of the torso free without breaking anything, although I did drop the head. So that's the head we're trying to replace. And so what we're going to do is we're going to cut the stem off of this, so that that's the same shape as the old head, and then we're going to glue that stem into the body between the two torso halves, and that will give us a solid base to put the new head on. It's a little hard to see, but there is actually a tiny little nub sticking out that I'm trying to align with the rest of it, so although it looks like it's just round, there is actually a right way to put this piece in. Fortunately, the two halves of the torso go together much more easily than they came apart. They just push fit like so. And there you've got, perhaps not the most perfect seat for the head, but once you apply glue, it will really make no difference whatsoever. And this is roughly what we hope it will look like. Now, just as with the how to assemble your model video, we get the mold line remover tool and remove the mold lines from, well, mainly from the bald head, but also from the gasket area below. Once this is done, be sure to remove all of the little plastic chips or swarf from doing this. This is why I'm just going over it with my fingers. Right, now with the head and the body prepared, we can apply a small amount of polystyrene cement. This will need just a few moments to start melting the plastic, and then they can be pushed together. I apply it to both surfaces first, as per the instructions on this particular brand's bottle. Now at this point, it is already starting to look quite different, and I think you can understand why one of the simplest steps in conversion is often called a head swap. Now, whilst I had the Primaris Upgrade sprue out, I also noticed there were other options for the little shield, so I thought I'd go for one with the sword icon on it, which will look a little bit more Dark Angels and actually be slightly bigger, so hopefully this will fit. Of course it doesn't have the same peg at the back, so we will have to improvise a little bit. Obviously clean the mould lines, although this one wasn't too bad, it was mainly just where it had stuck to the sprue, so although I could go all the way around it, it didn't really need it on this particular piece. That should line up roughly with the original one. As long as it doesn't interfere with the arm, it should be fine. So again, a little glue on each surface, and we should be able to sew that up quite quickly. This might seem a bit excessive, but you do need to hold the two surfaces together for a few seconds before it actually starts to melt together and actually bond properly. Now we're going to replace this whole arm, but at the moment I'm focused on mainly the shoulder pad. This one seems to have the right kind of size and look as the original. I know it's meant for a Primaris aggressor, but in this case I think we can make an exception. This also means I'm going to need an arm, so I'm going to take one of the arms from the Primaris Sergeant that I'm not actually going to use on a Primaris Sergeant later on. So this one has basically a bolt pistol and then a bolt gun hanging down on a strap. It will need a few extra pieces, as you can see, to fill in the gaps, but it will give a very different look to this area of the model. We're also going to free the scope and magazine, which was one of the missing pieces for the bolt gun that's hanging down. As ever, we not only need to remove the mould lines and any areas where the sprue has left a mark, but we also need to drill out the gun barrels as well with a small pin drill that I bought years and years ago from the Games Workshop. So if mine looks a little bit different to the one you can buy now, it's simply an older model. Don't forget we have to do the same to the shoulder pad as well. Again, the mould lines on these are not particularly bad, but it is quite bad where it was separated from the sprue. And then the two go together dry fitted like this just to make sure they fit together. It is quite important to remove the equivalent marks on the magazine as well, because it actually has to slot in between two sides. when being assembled, so it's no good having anything sticking out here. So if I seem to be working on this for longer than seems necessary, it's simply to make sure things fit together later. Here's a dry fit, i.e. no glue, just to see what it might look like when it's all assembled. Now this was the pin drill that I mentioned earlier, or pin vise as some manufacturers call it, and I'm using a micro drill here just to start off the holes on the bolt guns for the barrel and the cross drilling. Strictly speaking, this is an optional step, but it does tend to make the guns look a bit more realistic than if they just had flat ends and you had to paint like a black circle as if that was the depth of the barrel. As you can see, when I say that I'm drilling through, I am actually drilling all the way through. So if you have your finger behind this, the drill's going to go into your fingers, so do be very careful when using a pin drill or pin vise. One little trick I want to show you is actually scoring the barrel with a cross, and the idea is that the drill will neatly start drilling in the center of where the cross goes. So if you can get this anywhere near the center of the gun, that makes your life a lot easier. And of course you can always use the mold line remover tool afterwards to scrape the front of the barrel to get rid of the scoring lines. Now you might think that hole in the barrel is a little bit small, but actually what you'll find is it's very easy to enlarge a drilled hole with a larger drill. It's very hard to pull a drill back onto center if you've drilled it off center though. Now we're going to remove that smallest drill bit, which I believe is 0.8mm, and we're going to replace it for one slightly bigger, which is 1mm, to drill out those gun barrels. And as I said, you can then scrape off any excess with the mold line remover tool, just as if it had come out of the mold like this. Now that's pretty much ready to go on, but of course this particular peg isn't really designed for this arm, so they don't quite go together, so we will have to work on that slowly. Now, in order to get that arm to fit, we're going to have to cut most of this peg off, not all of it, just most of it, so that there's just a little nub sticking out. And there's actually a hole in the arm, so then the arm fits over the nub, and then it should be able to fit pretty close to the body. It might not be 100% perfect, but it'll be close. Now again, to assemble this, we'll have to use plastic glue, polystyrene cement. Just apply it fairly generously to both surfaces and give it a few moments, and then press it together. There we go, that's already looking quite different to how it started. Here's a comparison with the original model. You can see how different it looks already. And now once that's dry, we need to attach the shoulder pad. I do generally wait for the arm to dry in position, because otherwise pressing down on the shoulder pad could alter the position of the arm whilst the glue's drying, and you don't really want that to happen. Now this did dry fit just fine, but then as soon as I added the glue, it didn't seem to want to stay in place or fit in place. So if you see me moving things around quite a lot, it's simply trying to get the shoulder pad to fit. Okay, so that's already looking quite good, but I don't like the symbol on the backpack, which looks very Ultramarines or Imperial Fists or something, and my army's Dark Angels. So let's get rid of that. Now I'm just using my hobby clippers to cut it free, but we will need to tidy up the area where it was attached to the backpack. Try to preserve those two, I don't know what they're called, kind of square things that stick up on the backpack, because all of the Primaris backpacks seem to have those, and this guy's going to look very odd if he doesn't have them. Now I'm just using a craft knife, because although I've used the mold line remover tool, it's actually pushed some swarf up against one of those blocks, and I couldn't get it away with the mold line remover tool by itself. Now for the purpose of this video, that's pretty much the conversion as done as it's going to get. Here's a comparison with the original. You can see it's already looking very different, even though it's quite obviously based on the same original model. That is really the idea behind conversions. If you imagine showing a friend who also collects Space Marines, your Primaris Lieutenant would look very different now. It also leaves us with these cool bits for the bits box. As a bonus, I'm going to show you some other forms of conversion. You don't have to take conversions very far, or you can go absolutely bananas and do tons and tons of conversion. I know some people enjoy doing that more than painting and playing the war games, so it's really up to you.
Right, if you've watched this far, firstly thank you for watching, I very much appreciate it. If you did like the video, please hit like, hit subscribe, hit the little bell shaped icon to let you know when the next video will be coming out. I hope it will be soon.